Listen up, Titans. I'm Profane, and it's time that we had a serious talk about using the Pyrogale Gauntlets with the new Prismatic subclass. Is it possible? Yes, but is it effective? Well, let's talk about that, because at first, I'll be honest, I didn't think this exotic would synergize as well with the Prismatic subclass as it does with a base solar subclass. The Pyrogales provides the intrinsic trait called Percussive Flames, which converts Burning Maul into a single-shot super. It also creates a solar cyclone whenever consecrations are performed, and these will seek out nearby enemies, dealing bonus damage and applying extra scorch. Since Prismatic doesn't offer the Burning Maul super, we will only get the addition of the solar cyclones, and this didn't sound like a good trade-off at first, until taking into account that the Prismatic subclass will give us several ways of almost infinitely spamming those consecrations, giving us the power to clear through huge waves of enemies and put champions down before they have a chance to breathe. The Pyrogale won't give us that same burst damage that it does on a solar build, but it makes up for it by providing us with an incredible add clear build that you'll be able to use in any expert lost sector, nightfall, raid, or dungeon. This build can be used aggressively or passively, but I find it to be much more effective when you play to the strengths of a Titan. And sometimes that means eating crayons or punching things, which is exactly what we plan on doing. Everything about this build revolves around either using our consecration or building it up, and this is why we have chosen to use Frenzied blades as our melee option. This gives us up to 3 totaled powered melees, which translates into 3 consecrations. We'll also have Transcendence, and when this gets activated, we'll be able to spam all of our abilities, allowing us to execute several consecrations, back to back. I know there's a big appeal for Diamond Lance, but we have chosen to go with Knockout with this build, and this will play a pivotal role towards keeping us alive. When we critically wound or defeat an enemy with a melee, we'll trigger Knockout. And while it's active, we'll have a bonus to our melee damage, and we'll get health recovery triggered, and that's the most beneficial factor. There are other means of getting health restoration, but this will be the most effective and easiest to trigger. Plus there's the fact that it gives our consecration slams a 50% increase in damage. Knockout will also make us amplified, giving us a nice boost in movement speed to move around the battlefield easier. We're also using thrusters for that same purpose, but I do find barricades to be much more beneficial as far as a survivability standpoint goes. When it comes to our choice in super, I like having the explosive quick burst damage of Thunder Crash, but there's a lot of value that can be had from using Blade Fury or Hammers, since they're both great at clearing out groups of adds. We'll discuss it more in depth here soon, but there's also a few fragments that we do have selected that will provide us with specific benefits based on our choice in super. Our choice in grenades will also rely on the activities that we're in. Suppressor grenades stun overload champions and apply void weakening, and thanks to a few artifact mods, that's something that we can take advantage of with this build, but we'll talk more about that here soon. There's also glacial grenades, which will work perfect with consecration, freezing enemies in place and adding all that extra shatter damage into the mix, and these are going to provide great makeshift barricades for you or an ally. When using consecration and glacial grenades, the facet of Ruin will be an excellent choice in fragments, since it will increase the size and damage of shattering effects and ignitions, and that will be extremely beneficial with this build. We're also using facet of protection, and that's going to give us 15% increased damage resistance whenever we are surrounded by at least 3 enemies, and we plan on that happening a lot. When we are transcendent, this will be increased to around 25% bonus damage resistance, and we'll be activating that transcendency as often as possible, and this is why we are using the facet of honor in combination with facet of awakening. Collecting an elemental pickup of any kind or destroying a tangle will grant bonus transcendency energy, and rapidly defeating targets with light or darkness based energies will create elemental pickups that match that energy. Elemental pickups is a phrase that we've used pretty frequently, so let's talk about those real quick. Solar energies will create fire sprites, Fire sprites grant grenade energy. Void energies will create void breaches, which provides melee energy. Stasis shards also grant melee energy, and arc energies will create ionic traces, and those provide grenade, melee, and class ability. So to that end, it's more beneficial for us to stack this build with arc, void, and stasis abilities, as well as weapons. And that's why suppressor grenades or glacier grenades are both going to be great options, and that's why Thunder Crash and Knockout will synergize with this Consecration build. But then there is the matter of survivability, which is why we are using Facet of Purpose. When collecting an orb, this will provide us with either Amplified, Restoration, Frost Armor, Woven Mail, or an Overshield, but this will be based on which super we are using. Frost Armor, Woven Mail, and Restoration are by far the best survival options, but their matching supers won't always be as beneficial. And this is another reason why we want to use Knockout, because if we are playing aggressively and getting those melee kills, we'll have that health restoration. We'll also have that damage resistance because of Facet of Protection, and that's going to allow us to use that high powered damage super like Thunder Crash. Facet of Dawn is another great fragment that would pair up really nicely. It grants Radiance whenever you strike enemies with a charged melee, and when you defeat enemies with a charged melee, it grants that Radiance to allies. But because the current artifact provides the Radiant Orbs mod, we can gain that Radiance when we collect orbs, and I'd much rather be able to have Facet of Ruin on this build. With our subclass options addressed, let's move deeper into the seasonal artifact. There's a lot of goodies in here. Winning Hand is great when using those new Paleheart weapons, like the Call. Saint's Inspiration is also nice, but only when used with those reprised weapons. And the Overload Sword mod, Blade Stamina, and Argent Blade all make compelling arguments on running swords. But the mods that we're more interested in are the ones that are going to boost our ability regeneration. Elemental Siphon is going to generate additional elemental pickups. Rapid Final Blows with a kinetic weapon or a weapon matching our super will create these. So if we're still using Thunder Crash, that means extra ionic traces, which means we're getting bonus energy to all three of our abilities. If champions are also present, we want to use the Counter Energy mod, since it provides bonus energy to our least charged ability every time a champion is stunned. Knockout will keep us amplified, so using Galvanic Armor is a no-brainer. This is going to provide us with an additional bonus and damage resistance whenever we are amplified. That's going to be a 30% bonus and damage reduction, which is going to be stacked on top of what Facet of Protection provides, giving us as much as a 55% bonus and damage reduction. Another extremely beneficial artifact mod will be in the final column, and this is called Transference. When we are transcended, we will have a 10% increase to all melee and all grenade damage. Knockouts already given our Consecration a 50% increase in damage, so these are going to hit really hard when we're transcended. Any weapon final blows while we are transcended will generate bonus energy, helping us build up our next Transcendency even quicker, and that's going to translate into more and more Consecrations. So is the Pyrogale still effective with a Prismatic subclass? You damn right it is, but you gotta use it the right way. Now if we are using the Twilight Arsenal super, suppressor grenades, or void weapons that weaken targets, we should most definitely consider using Void Hegemony in combination with the Expanding Abyss. This way we get an additional overshield whenever defeating weakened enemies. And once we have weakened targets, all sources of void energy will deal between 25 and 35% bonus damage, based on what type of weakening effect was used. Now when it comes to our choice in weapons, we run into more situations where it's reliant upon the activity, and what champions might be in it. Ideally, I would love to run this with the Monte Carlo, getting that bonus melee energy, getting that bayonet. It's a beautiful thing. The conditional finality would also be an amazing choice, especially if using those glacial grenades. But these won't always be practical, and sometimes you need to whip out that Malfeasance, the Wish Ender, or something else. The Traveler's Chosen can be a sure bet since it'll stun Unstoppables, and it gives you a lot of ability energy back, but I'm really coming around to the final warning. so much power out of just a tiny little sidearm. And it just got a new catalyst, and that's available out of Vanguard, Gambit, and Crucible playlist activities. The Risk Runner would also be a really smart choice, at least in terms of survivability. SMGs will pierce barrier shields this season, and you'll be able to withstand a lot of damage when that arc shield goes up. As far as legendary weapons go, we want those that come with Pugilist or Grave Robber, perks that are going to synergize with our use of Consecration. There's a number of origin traits that would also help us with this, like 2 Excess, which is on the Callus Mini Tool, or the Braytech Inheritance, which is on all the Deepstone Crypt weapons. Since we're going to be point blank with our enemies, a shotgun with Trench Barrel would be a smart play. Until its return is a great strand option. The Basso Ostinato is great if you want Void, and the Aikilo shotgun would make a great solar option. Alright, stepping away from our choices and weapons, let's talk about our armor and our armor mods, and what we can do to increase our production of consecrations, while keeping us alive in the process. The character stats that you'll need to focus on, for PvE at least, will be Resilience, Strength, then Recovery and Discipline, but having that Resilience at 100 is going to be crucial. When it comes to armor mods, we're using Siphon Helmet mods, Heavy Handed, and Reaper mods, so that we have a steady stream of orbs, so that we can charge up our abilities and activate those prismatic fragments. We've got Melee Kickstart, which will take armor charges that we gain off of those orbs, and it'll convert it into additional melee energy whenever we use our charged melee. And this will provide us with as much as 40% additional energy. We've also got Outreach and Distribution, providing us with bonus energy, translating into a lot more consecrations. Even though Knockout will provide us with health on each final blow, I still find it beneficial to run a Recuperation Boots mod, so that you have a secondary means of triggering health restoration whenever collecting an orb. With all of these armor mods, fragments, and abilities working together to provide us with so much melee and transcended energy, we'll be performing overpowered consecration slams over and over and over, putting those Pyrogale Gauntlets to work. So is it a smart play to run the Pyrogale with Prismatic? Of course it is. It's a great combination, so definitely worth checking out if you haven't already. And with that said, we've now come to an end of today's build video. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the Pyrogale, about Prismatic Titans, and the state of Destiny. Let us know down in the comments. If you need any help making a copy of today's build, be sure to check out the Mobalytics link that's down in the description. Thank you as always for checking out the video. If you enjoyed and found it helpful, then be sure to hit the like button below, along with the subscribe button if you're new. Both are greatly appreciated, and both really do help support the channel. If you're a new Light Guardian, just starting your journey, or a battle-hardened veteran just looking for a new home, then be sure to check out the Discord link in the description below and join one of the greatest communities in all of Destiny. And until next time, Guardians, this has been Profane, wishing you all some happy hunting.